Yeah, it's Mindset Café, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits.
You can be proud of yourself and your progress and still feel like you're not doing enough. And it's a brutal feeling because part of you knows that you're moving and you're moving forward, but another part of you still feels like you're behind. And most people start to respond in the wrong way to that feeling, right? They add more pressure, more guilt, more self-criticism, more hustle. But here's the truth. That feeling is not always a sign that you need to work harder. Sometimes it's a sign that you are living under an invisible ceiling, a limit essentially, right? A limit that you have practiced for so long that it feels almost like it's part of your personality. And once you see that, a lot of things in your life might start to make sense. You know, in almost like that feeling of like kind of like a chronic plateau, right? The push, the pull, the feeling like you're having some progress, and then you start to back off a little bit or retreat a little bit, right? You start to get the pride or the joy that you're seeing some results, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, it's still not enough. That's still not enough voice, right afterwards starts to play in your head, and that loop lines up with what I had to look up and research what it was called, but in psychology, they call it self-discrepancy and discrepancy-based perfectionism, right? So in theory, you could be making real progress while your mind stays locked on that gap of where you want to be and where you currently are, regardless of how far you've come. But what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devin Gonzalez, and today I'm breaking down why your life can improve yet still feel too small, or like your progress can feel too small at the same time, right? Why you can, let's say, make more money and still feel like you're stuck. Why you can essentially get in better shape. And I know this is, I'm probably talking to a lot of members right now at Strive 11 Fitness, but why you can get in better shape and still feel like you're not seeing the results, even though you know that the results are there. You're doing the body composition scans and you see the numbers, but you can get in better shape. And then the other side of the coin is that you start to fall back, right? You take one step forward and then you start to take 2 steps back, right? Or 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And even why, you can meet, let's say, healthier people and still feel like you're repeating the same relationship patterns that you did with the previous version of you, and why grinding harder does not always fix it, right? And believe me, I've been guilty of that. And so I'm speaking from experience, and I know a lot of people can resonate with this. So I want to start off by saying, if this resonates with you, send it to someone else it probably will resonate with. Someone else that is battling that inner demon of telling them they're not making progress when you could see that they're making progress, right? Do that for me, do it for you, and do it for the person that you're sending it to. So this episode is going to move in essentially 3 stages, right? The stages we'll probably cover is awareness of what's happening, discovery, and then the breakthrough. My goal is essentially for this episode, after having so many 11-week challenge meetings, is hopefully at the end of this episode, I want you to be able to spot your invisible ceiling, understand where it possibly have came from, and break through that shit, right? And hopefully this episode gets you motivated, right? That's my goal, to help you out, make you feel good, but also not just give you some fluff and give you some actionable things that you can improve yourself with. because the goal is not to become endlessly hard on yourself, right? Life is already tough. Life is already throwing you so many stressful things, like you don't need to add to your own suck, essentially, right? Like the suck that meaning like the hard work you have to do, the tasks you have to complete, the things that you don't essentially want to do, but you know you need to do them. The things that are hard but are making you better, that are causing stress, whatever the case may be. So that's the generic version of like what the suck means. But my goal essentially is to help you become more accurate on why you feel that way and what's happening in your own mind, right? Because the accuracy of understanding where it's coming from will change your life, right? So you're not always stuck. I just have to say that. Like, I've had this conversation, I want to say countless times over the last, I think we're in week 7 out of the 11 weeks. And I just got to say, like, you're not always stuck. A lot of the times you maybe just be capped, right? And that's that invisible ceiling. Sometimes it's just an internal limit that you rarely question because you keep living inside of it, and you're used to it. And you tell yourself, I just can't seem to get past this level, right? AKA ceiling. But if you look closer, there's usually a pattern. And that's what I've had with these conversations, like finding that pattern. You get close to a better level or that next level, or, you know, breaking through a barrier you haven't been to yet, and then something pulls you back, right? Let's say in in business, right? Maybe you keep circling the same monthly revenue. You hit a strong month, and then the next month, all of a sudden, you stop following up, you stop posting, you stop, asking for the sale, you drift back down. Let's say in fitness, right? Maybe you always end up back at the same body weight or the same body fat percentage or whatever the case may be, the same energy level, right? The same excuses. It's not random, right? That is your ceiling. Once you hit that ceiling, it's the threshold where you're like, oh man, it's starting to get uncomfortable. Let me take a step back. That is the ceiling, right? And you're not always fighting reality, right? Because reality is in your mind. Reality is formed essentially through your past and current experiences. That is your reality. So reality is not a singular thing. So you're not fighting reality. You're fighting what feels normal to you. You're fighting the old version of you. You're fighting to get to that next level, right? You're not stuck. A lot of times you're just internally capped, right? So a little quick exercise. We'll start off with this. I want to give you a tool right out the gate. Open up the notes app in your phone and write the question. Where in my life do I keep returning to the same level? Or where, like, name your journey, right? Fitness, business, whatever the case may be, right? At what point do I usually hit that wall, right? You can pick your financial sector of your life, right? Fitness, relationships, inner peace, whatever. I don't care what it is. Pick an area, right? And then ask the question, what is that level, or what is that stage that I normally hit before all of a sudden I usually start to fall back or start to degress, right? And write it down, right? Not just the goal of where you want to be, right? Because I know a lot of people write their goals and they manifest and all that kind of cool stuff. And I say cool sarcastically. Because at the end of the day, if you just have a dream and you're not taking action, uncomfortable action to get it, it will always stay a dream, right? So what do you keep returning to? That same level, that is the pattern, right? That's what you have to figure out. That pattern is essentially consistent with your self-regulation of like what comfort is, right? So you need to find like, what is it? A certain weight? Is it a certain revenue? Is it a certain, financial standing in the bank, like what is the point that things start to fall off, right? Because people start to operate around familiar standards and automatic routines unless something deliberately changes the target on the next round, right? Or essentially changes like the context of whenever that event happens, changes like the context in your brain of what's happening and what to do next. So here's the dangerous part about this, right? The ceiling usually doesn't feel like fear. Like you're not like, oh my goodness, like I don't know what's gonna happen if I do this. I've never been at this weight, or I've never been at, have had this much money in the bank, whatever the case. It doesn't feel like that, right? It feels like normal. And that's why people miss it. And the scariest ceiling is the one that feels like home, because that's where people kind of get complacent. And that's where you're like, okay, well, this is where I'm just meant to be. And so it doesn't really announce itself, right? It just sounds essentially reasonable. It kind of sounds like, well, this is enough, right? Or be realistic. Don't get ahead of yourself. Why push so hard? I could take a rest day. I could do this. I could have a cheat meal because I've been working so hard. It feels familiar, and familiar is powerful because it doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like how life just is. And that's why somebody can essentially say or stay in that same range, right? Whether income, business, fitness, whatever, for years without ever calling it a comfort zone, right? It's just the number that feels normal or feels doable. And that's why someone can live in that low level chaos, right? A little bit of missed sleep, inconsistent meals, poor boundaries, and you call it your personality, but honestly, no, right? Just no. That's just practiced normal. If your schedule always breaks down in the same way, if your sales always flatten after a certain point, if your, let's say, weekends always erase your weekdays of hard work in the gym, that's not life just happening. That's called a ceiling in disguise as a routine, right? So finish this sentence for me, right? Right now, normal in my life looks like ... right? Normal in my life right now looks like ... Then you have to ask yourself, once you're able to answer that question, ask yourself, do I actually want that? Or am I just used to this? Or used to it, right? Do I actually want that, or am I used to it, right? So recap those two parts. Right now, normal in my life looks like X, whatever it is. Do I actually want X, or am I just used to X? That matters because you tend to favor familiar as a default, and you'll repeat routines without even thinking about it. And that stable feeling of like, okay, like I'm progressing, everything's going well, and then all of a sudden you hit this ceiling, and then you start to come down, and you'll progress, hit the ceiling, come down, and then you're just on this yo-yo of life, and it's not fun. And then you get bitter because other people are progressing and they're pushing past their ceiling, yet you just think that this isn't for you, that you're not made for this. And that's what I'm sure you've heard me say the saying, you're not special. You are not special. You are not special enough for it to work for other people and not work for you. You are not that special. So you just have to, and I know this saying is cliche, but you just have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Let's say you're 200 pounds and you're trying to get to 150. Every time you hit 175, all of a sudden you're like, man, I just can't break that plateau, break that wall. It's like, because the things that you're doing keep you at 175. What do you have to adjust? It's not doing what you're doing now, right? What else do you have to incorporate? What do you have to change? Instead of, oh, I hit 175, high five, and let's go have a cheat meal. It's like, no, that's the wall that you always hit. All of a sudden, you hit 175, and then you're like, okay, well, yeah, I haven't been logging my meals. I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. I don't understand why everyone else is losing weight and I'm not. I don't understand why I'm not leaning out. It's like, well, shit, neither do I, because I can't tell because you're not logging your stuff. I can't tell because you don't have any data for me to look at, or for someone to look at to help you. You got to make sure you're tracking certain things that you're trying to improve, because if you're not tracking it, you can't improve it, right? But let's go a little bit deeper on it, right? The ceilings, where do the ceilings essentially come from? In my opinion, a lot of them start before you had that. I would say, having kids, like the adult language for them, right? They come from like when you're a kid, a child, in your childhood, right? Your environment, your family, dynamic, early wins, losses, what you heard, what you watched, what you got praised for, what you got mocked for, what you inherited beliefs, maybe let's say about money, about health, about love, conflict, success, discipline, whatever the case may be, even what kind of life feels available to you. Maybe you heard people like us don't make money like that, right? I was talking to a friend, and we had driven past some houses, years ago, and I'm not saying I'm at this level, but the house we were driving past were like $14 million houses, right? It was like $10 to $20 million houses, and he was like, dude, that's so crazy. I can't believe someone lives there. And then I was like, okay. I was like, I was just like in shock and awe. But it's like, you can't believe it? Why not? Right? Like, that's someone else's reality. Just because it's not your reality right now doesn't mean it can't be one of your realities at a point in your life, right? So sometimes it's just what you have internally playing in your head as the message, right? Maybe your house treated money when you were a kid with stress, right, instead of strategy. Maybe fitness was always a punishment. Maybe your parents' relationship or the relationships that you saw were inconsistent. So stable relationships feel maybe boring, right? Maybe your achievements got you attention, but at the same time, right, how to perform, but not just settle, right? Because maybe you weren't, acknowledged for just a chill time. And there's no shame in that, but it does matter, right? For you and in your story that you're telling yourself in your mind. Because if it's the old script that's staying in your unconscious or your subconscious, it keeps running the show. And a lot of times your limits, right, were learned before you ever got to choose them. So I want you to think about it like this, right? Try to complete these sentences. In my house, money meant blah, 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 blah. Or in my house, discipline meant blah, 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 blah. In my house, relationships meant blah, 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 blah. Right? Like what is your thing, right? In fitness, in my house, fitness meant blah, 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 blah. Whatever the case may be. Don't overthink it. Just write down the first honest answer. The ceilings usually have a sentence attached to them, and you can start to look into that attachment and essentially the beliefs around it, right? Because a lot of early experiences can become lasting models or scripts that will shape the version of you now, right? And the behaviors of you now, right? So like it's your own formed opinion and your own identity of yourself that's running in this script, right? But that's the real lock, right? Lock and key, right? That's the real lock that's holding you at that ceiling. So we need to be able to unlock that padlock so that you can break through. What is the script that's running in your mind? Why are you telling yourself you can only achieve this before you start to self-sabotage, right? You don't rise above the identity that you keep rehearsing in your own head. You can set goals above your identity for sure, right? You can set dreams, you can set ambitions, you can set wishes, right? but you can't hold them there for long because your identity quietly decides what feels like actually you. And if a behavior does not feel like you, then you need to be a constant force in breaking that pattern and keep doing it, right? Have you ever heard that saying that's like, fake it till you make it, right? You fake it until you make it in the sense of telling yourself, this is who I am, this is what I do, right? If you want to be a successful business owner, then act like a successful business owner would act. Do the things they would do, right? They probably wouldn't leave and clock out of work early just because they don't feel like working today. They work because they know they need to get the jobs done. You want to be a fitness influencer. Awesome. Well, what would a fitness influencer do, right? And just do that. That's honestly, that's why lines like, I'm just not disciplined, or I'm bad with money, or I always just fall off, are so dangerous, because that you're adding that to your script of who you are, right? You're saying I am, right? Or I always. So now your subconscious will always do that, or will make you bad with money, or will try to keep you from being disciplined, because your subconscious doesn't know what's true and what's a lie and what's opinion and what's fact. It just knows what you're telling it, and then it tries to follow your command, right? They don't just, like, those statements don't describe behavior, they lock in that identity. It's just adding to the padlock. It's getting the padlock bigger and thicker, right? And we need some fucking bolt cutters to cut that shit, right? And so once you defend the label, you keep producing evidence for it. And I will say, even like knowing this, the other day, my wife, she was frustrated with my daughter, because she was trying to change my son, who's 7 months, my daughter's 4, and she yelled at her and was like, or not yelled at her, but raised her voice and, said, "Oh, you're just being so you are so annoying." And then I just yelled my wife's name across, the living room to the room, and I was like, "Hey," and then she was like, "Okay, you're not annoying." And then afterwards, I told my wife, I was like, "It's okay to say, hey, you're acting annoying, but you don't tell her she is annoying, because then she's gonna start thinking, I am annoying, I am this, I am that," right? And it's like, no, you're not annoying. You're just acting in a way that is annoying, right? Like, for example, like, I can act super loving, super caring, my 4-year-old daughter, right? I am a certain way with her. I am soft, I am whatever with her, but that doesn't mean I am soft, right? I'm not a weak man, husband, dad, or anything by all means. Like, I am one of those guys that is fuck around and find out. But at the same time, that is not the version of me that my daughter sees, right? And so same thing with these other labels, right? If you say, I am weak, or I am this, I am that, like, you will start to identify with it and try to make it your reality, right? So, for example, like, let's say a guy says he wants to build a business, but keeps saying, I'm not really a salesperson, right? Or a woman says she wants to get strong, but keeps saying, I've just never been consistent with the gym. Somebody says, let's say they want a healthy relationship, but identifies as the one who always picks the wrong person, right? Those are all locks, right? That is locking the level that you will rise to, because you do not rise above that identity. You just keep rehearsing it, right? And you need to fix it. And so one way you can do it essentially is, start telling yourself the opposite, right? Instead of saying, I'm just not consistent, or I'm just not disciplined, be like, I'm not inconsistent, or I'm not undisciplined. I'm not, whatever. And so you're telling yourself the opposite of it, and then you start to also believe it. So, for example, I have you can think about it this way. You can tell yourself, I have practiced inconsistency but I can practice consistency. That shift will matter, right? I've practiced the bad thing, but I can practice the good thing. And then you do it, right? So that shift matters because it's identity relevant behaviors that are easier essentially to pursue and help you grow to that next level, while fixed self scripts or self-limiting thoughts or beliefs or self-theories push people down to read difficulty as essentially their proof or their testimony that they are not built for the task. They are not built for this. And I'm telling you now, you are built for it, right? That's where that self-sabotage starts making sense. And a lot of self-sabotage is not about laziness. It's about identity mismatch. When your results start exceeding what feels normal, a part of you starts pulling back, right? And I completely get it, but that upper limit is the problem. You start doing better than your identity knows, and so you start to create drag. You procrastinate, you pick a fight, you overspend, right? You go off the grid or disappear. You stop following up, right? You break your streak. I'm not saying that each one of these will all be the same, right? Pick the one that fits you, obviously. Some of the ones I'm mentioning is like, in fitness, you stop eating your meals, you stop planning your macros, you get it? So the whole thing is, the result is creating this internal friction, and self-sabotage is usually identity protection around that internal friction, right? So, for example, in fitness, right? Just kind of tying back to the 11-week challenge, right? Let's say you train hard for 2 weeks. You start feeling sharper, more energetic. You're getting compliments. And then you have a cheat meal, which was supposed to be a cheat meal, which turned into a cheat weekend that quietly turned into, I'll start again clean tomorrow, which tomorrow turns into the next tomorrow, and so forth. And all of a sudden, you have five cheat days in a row, right? That's not you being hungry. That's just you being pulled off of your path and being pulled to your previous version of yourself. So I want you to think about it for a second. But what is the thing that you start to do, right, as essentially almost like your pullback move, right? What do you start to do right after things start going well, right? What is that thing that starts the snowball back to the version of you before you started seeing results, right? Because if you can name that, right, then you can build a plan around it. If I feel that urge to avoid, doing sales calls, then I will send one of these follow-up messages before I do anything else. If I miss one workout, then I train the next day no matter what. That kind of cue linked planning helps you build reliability within yourself and helps you bridge that gap between your intention and your action, especially when there's obstacles, when obstacles are predictable because they keep happening on your path to seeing that next level of you. And I will say that in fitness, especially, business too, but in fitness especially, that the ceiling is brutal, right? Because your temporary effort can hide for a while, right? You go to the gym, you give it all you can today, you wake up the next day, you look in the mirror, nothing has changed, right? But if you push hard for multiple days in a row, let's say 30 days, right? You can, white knuckle a meal plan together, you can cut weight fast, but your body follows your default. Not your speeches to yourself, not your YouTube motivation videos, whatever the case may be. It defaults if your defaults don't change, right? Your results do not hold. That's why you've lost weight, gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, lost weight, gained weight, right? And that's why so many people get in shape and then slide back. Not because the program failed, but because the old system was still waiting for them at home. The old script was still running in their head. The snacks were still there. The late nights were still there. The binge drinking was still there. The unplanned weekends were still there. The identity was still there, right? I'm being good right now is not the same thing as I am a person who trains, eats like this. I will say that again. I'm being good right now is not the same thing as I am a person who trains like this and eats like this. A long-term maintenance is where this gets tested and is the hardest. And that's why even at Strive 11, we have the 11-week challenge, because it's easier to do a challenge for 4 weeks and 6 weeks and so forth. But 11 weeks, almost 3 months, that's tough to stick to something for that long. And so the whole point of it is to essentially help you break any self-sabotaging thoughts throughout the 11 weeks, because there will be ups, there will be downs, but it's getting you back on the train to see more results. So throughout your 11 weeks, you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down, but at the end, you should be way better than when you started, right? To help build like the new habits or new routines for yourself, one thing you can do is essentially stack a task on top of a task that's already in your routine. For example, after you brush your teeth, I put on workout clothes, right? Or after I make coffee, I drink a full glass of water. Or after lunch, I do a 10-minute walk. Small things are fine as well. The point is to be consistent. Your body follows your default, not your temporary motivation. So you gotta think those little micro changes that you're adding on the back end of something will start to rewrite the script of what your routine is, what your default is. And that's the whole point of stacking stuff on top. So it's like, even for example, let's say in business, once I open up my computer, I make sure I check my emails. Or the moment I open my computer, I pull up the KPI, right? I see my numbers for the month to date, or whatever the case may be, right? So it's task one, which is something you come into work, you open up your laptop no matter what, but then what's the thing right after the fact? Or in your relationship, for example, one thing could be like you get home, right? And you say hi to, the family or whatever the case may be, but it's like, then you ask them about their day. Or then you ask them what was their favorite part of today? What was one good thing, one bad thing? This was something that my mom, when she was here, she used to do with us every time. It used to drive me nuts. Every time I got in the car, my brothers, and even the most embarrassing part was when we had friends in the car, she would do this too, and I was like, Mom, this is so annoying, right? But it was, tell me one good thing and one bad thing of the day. And so it makes you recap everything in your day, and then the bad things, you get to talk about it and essentially try to solve it. So start to stack another task on top of a task that'll help you improve your identity to yourself, on top of something that you already do daily. Not something that you do here and there or during the weekdays, but something that you do daily. So one thing I want to do as well is like realize that you need to name the ceiling, right? And a lot of times I think that when I talk to people, that ceiling sounds pretty much like this phrase: this is just who I am. It's like, kind of, but you also get to choose who you are, right? So that sentence has killed more growth than true failure ever did and ever will. Because that moment you say, this is just who I am, that's the moment you will stop training as hard as you need to. That is the moment you will stop asking questions and questioning the things to help you grow mentally. That'll be the moment that you stop experimenting, let's say to create a business or to, whatever. Or even you stop building the evidence for yourself into the other direction so that you can get to that next level, right? And listen, some preferences are real, but at the same time, some tendencies are real. But a lot of what people call who I am is just what they have repeated for so long that this is just who I am is a sentence people use when they do not want to do the hard thing. They do not want to train. They do not want to try to figure out their finances, right? It's it's an easy scapegoat of this is just who I am, accept it, because I'm accepting it now so that I don't have to do the uncomfortable thing. And maybe that this is just who I am is evidence from the last season or last version of you, but it doesn't have to be the identity for the next season or the next version of you, right? So you have to realize that you try to ban the phrase, this is just who I am, and replace it with something along the lines of like, that is what I've practiced, right? Or that is what I've done, right? And that language will shift and push you essentially out of that fixed mindset and back into the growth mindset of you. So watch for the patterns, right? Watch for the cycles of progress, then regress. That's what this whole thing is about, right? Watch for you avoiding the bigger opportunities, right? Or feeling weird when things start start going so well. Definitely start watching for, one thing I noticed was, or when talking to people, is like downplaying your own potential. Never downplay your own potential. You should be your biggest fan. You should be your biggest hype person, right? Always. Because you already have enough people out there judging and all that kind of stuff. Like, you don't need to judge yourself in that aspect. Don't downplay your potential, because you can do pretty much anything that you want to if you are willing to put in the effort and work for it, right? So I hope this episode brought a different light on maybe that wall that you've been hitting, and hopefully you can start to name it, understand why you're saying it, see why it's happened in the past, and build some small micro tasks around it so that you can break through that version of that ceiling that keeps holding you back, right? It's time to get those bolt cutters and break that lock off. So you have to realize that a lot of people think hard work alone will break the ceiling, but it won't. It won't. Hard work does matter, but effort without your identity change usually just becomes a cycle, right? A push, a slip, a push, a slip, a push, a slip, because willpower is not designed to fight your whole environment all day long. And it definitely is not designed to override a self-concept you keep feeding yourself, right? You cannot outwork an identity that rejects your next level or your next version of you or your goal. You also cannot outgrind a system designed to pull you backwards, and that system is self-designed. If your phone is full of distractions, your kitchen is built for convenience, your calendar has no structure, your social circle normalizes the drift, your language keeps labeling yourself as the same old person, effort alone is going to gas out. It is going to gas out, right? So one thing you need to do is try to remove one thing of friction, right? Maybe put walking, your shoes, your running shoes, your walking shoes, whatever the case may be, by the door, right? Or move the junk food out of sight. Because I know if I threw the junk food even away at my house, my daughter would murder me. But move it out of sight, right? Or block essentially maybe the app during your work hours, right? Put your pipeline sheet on your desk of all your leads. Text a friend who raises your standard, right? Not just the one who feeds your excuses. So your repeated behavior is cued by your context, right? And when self-control is low, people lean harder on whatever habits are already the strongest. Changing the setting will help you change the pull. So what you can do instead, right? Raise your internal standards. Your life will reflect what you believe is acceptable for you and what is achievable for you. Not what you say you want, but what you accept. That is why standards matter more than moods or feelings or emotions. Standards are what you do after motivation leaves the room, right? People with low standards negotiate every decision that they have in the day. People with strong standards will make fewer emotional bargains and fewer emotional decisions throughout the day. So you need to set your standards a little bit higher with what your goals are, because your standards create that floor, and that floor is your protection from momentum. So realize it, identify it, write it down if you need to, right? But that's where the real shift starts to happen. I need you to stop saying, I want this, and start saying like, this is who I am, this is who I am becoming, and this is what I do. Like I am that person. So stop saying I want this, change it to this is me. Like I am that person. I am him or I am her, right? And this is what I do. It sounds simple, but honestly it is powerful, because the desire can stay abstract for days, years, but your identity has to cash out in action, right? Not fake affirmations or manifestations or whatever the case, but actual self-evidence. So you have to provide yourself with evidence, and the evidence is done by actually achieving it. So you lost 5 pounds, boom, look, there's your evidence that you can lose weight. There's evidence that you can lose 5 pounds. If you lost 5 pounds, you can lose 5 more pounds. Let's say you got your first sale in business. Well, look, you got 1 sale, that means you can get more sales, so forth, right? Your ceiling rises when execution starts to become normal. If you've never seen, let's say, clean standards or clean relationships or clean consistency, high output, high health, whatever the case is, or what your next level looks like, you will always keep feeling like it's extreme. So maybe you just need a better room or a better circle instead of staying in the same environment that is allowing that to feel so out of reach. So I'll leave you with this. We'll wrap with this. For the next, let's say, week, right, 7 days, I want you to pick one ceiling that you may have, just one, right? Just focus on one thing for this next week, right? Is it your money, your finances, your fitness, a relationship, right? And every day, notice one moment when you feel the pull to go back to normal, or a pull to take you off of course of your growth. And then take the small opposite action immediately, right? Whether it's sending a follow-up or putting your shoes on, tell the truth, right? Eat a planned meal, leave the old room, whatever the case is. Choose your new behavior before you have time to negotiate with yourself, right? Just take action. Don't think about it, just do it. Because awareness starts the shift. If you can identify what it is, your identity will stabilize it, right? Your action seals it. You're not always stuck. A lot of the time, you are just living under that ceiling you've learned, rehearsed, and protected for years. Now you can see it. Now that you can see it, you do not need to worship that old version of you, that old identity of you, right? You see that padlock on that ceiling, break that shit. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. If you guys need anything, feel free to shoot me a DM. I'm more than happy to help in any way I can. But make sure you guys, again, share this episode with a friend who's hitting that invisible ceiling, or they keep saying to you, this is just who I am. Whatever the case may be. But I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Just in the game of life, mindset calls the shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle hard, I go against